Have you ever felt like you're constantly giving and giving, but no one seems to notice? The truth is, kindness is a powerful force. It has the ability to heal, to connect, to bring people together. But what happens when kindness is taken for granted? What happens when you give so much that you lose yourself in the process? The delicate balance between being kind and standing up for yourself is what many of us struggle with. It's not always easy to know where to draw the line. We all want to be good to others, but at what cost? Are we doing this at the expense of our own peace, our self-respect, and our happiness? And even more importantly, are we teaching others how to treat us? We live in a world where kindness is seen as a virtue, and rightfully so. The act of being kind can transform someone's day, build trust, and create a sense of unity. But here's the catch. Kindness doesn't mean you should allow people to walk all over you. The problem arises when we mistake kindness for weakness. People might take advantage of your good nature. They might ask more of you than you're willing to give. And if you're constantly putting others first without setting boundaries, you end up sacrificing your own needs for the sake of someone else's comfort. This is where the dangerous line between kindness and being a doormat begins to blur. You must ask yourself, am I being kind because I truly want to? Or am I being kind because I'm afraid to say no? Think about the times you've been too kind. Have you ever found yourself doing something you didn't want to do just because you were afraid of upsetting someone? Perhaps you agreed to plans that drained your energy, or let someone take advantage of your time thinking you had no choice but to comply. What did that lead to? A sense of resentment, a feeling of being unappreciated. It's not uncommon to fall into these patterns when we don't recognize our own value. We start to believe that in order to be liked, respected, or loved, we need to put others before ourselves. But here's the hard truth. If you keep doing that, you'll burn out. And at the end of the day, the people you're trying to please might not even notice the sacrifices you've made. So what's the solution? It's simple. Be kind, but not at the expense of your own well-being. One of the greatest myths we've been taught is that kindness means always saying yes. Always agreeing to help, always accommodating, always sacrificing. But here's something you may not have heard often. You have every right to say no, and saying no doesn't make you cruel or selfish. It makes you a person who values their time, energy, and mental health. When you say no in a respectful way, you're teaching others to respect your boundaries. You're not being a doormat, you're showing self-respect. In fact, people will respect you more when they see that you are clear about what you will and won't tolerate. Boundaries are not walls. They are the lines that protect your peace and your personal growth. Without boundaries, kindness becomes an empty gesture, and resentment begins to creep in. When we talk about being kind without being a doormat, we must also acknowledge the internal struggle. The voices in your head might say, "But if I don't do this, people will think I'm selfish," or "If I say no, I'll disappoint them." These fears are valid, but they don't have to control your actions. You see, there's a psychological barrier many of us face, the fear of rejection. We want to be liked. We don't want to disappoint. But here's a hard truth. Constantly pleasing others at the expense of yourself is a recipe for emotional exhaustion and burnout. It's okay to put yourself first sometimes, and in doing so, you're setting a healthy example for others to follow. After all, you cannot pour from an empty cup. It's okay to fill your cup first, to take care of your own needs, and then offer what's left to others. Let's talk about the psychological effects of being overly accommodating. When you constantly put others' needs ahead of your own, you risk developing a sense of unworthiness. You begin to believe that your needs don't matter as much as everyone else. This leads to low self-esteem, stress, anxiety, and even resentment. It's like trying to pour water into a cup that already has too much inside. Eventually, the cup will overflow and the water will spill out. This is what happens when we ignore our own needs for too long. We become overwhelmed, and everything that we've held in starts to pour out in frustration. What happens when you stop taking care of yourself? You become depleted, so it's time to stop being your own worst enemy. It's time to set healthy boundaries that preserve your mental and emotional health. The world has conditioned us to believe that kindness is the ultimate virtue, one that should always be extended even at a personal cost. But kindness without self-respect is hollow. It doesn't serve anyone in the long run. If you're constantly putting others first, you'll start feeling like you have nothing left to give. This is where burnout and resentment start to creep in. You give, and eventually there's nothing left for yourself. Here's a thought: how much more can you give if you're emotionally drained? How much more can you offer if you're struggling to maintain your own mental health? The answer is not much. And that's why it's critical to find a balance. The truth is, self-care is not selfish, it's essential. It's the foundation upon which you can build stronger, healthier relationships. What about the people in your life who don't respect your boundaries? They're the ones who take advantage of your kindness. They might be family members, friends, or co-workers. They might even be people you admire or care about. But when these individuals take advantage of your kindness, they are not doing it maliciously. They simply don't know how to respect your boundaries. It's not your fault. This is where you must step in and assert yourself. This is where you have to say enough is enough. Your kindness deserves to be treated with respect. If others cannot respect your boundaries, it might be time to reevaluate your relationship with them. Respect works both ways, and if someone isn't giving it to you, it's time to let them know that they are crossing the line. As you move forward, remember this. Being kind is about finding balance. It's about knowing when to give and when to walk away. It's about understanding that you have the power to choose how much of yourself you're willing to share. Kindness is a gift, one that should never be given away for free without consideration. So the next time someone asks you for something, pause. Ask yourself if you really want to give it. Ask yourself if this person respects your time and energy. It's okay to say no, and it's okay to put your needs first. In fact, it's necessary. When you start practicing this, you'll begin to feel more in control of your life, your choices, and your well-being. You deserve to be treated with the same kindness and respect that you offer to others. Being kind without being a doormat requires practice, patience, and above all, self-awareness. Recognize your worth. Understand that you are not obligated to say yes to everything and everyone. Your kindness is a treasure. Don't give it away freely without making sure you're also taking care of yourself. You can be loving, generous, and considerate, but also strong, assertive, and grounded in your own needs. Set your boundaries, stand tall, and know that you are worthy of love, respect, and kindness too. It's time to embrace the truth. You don't have to be a doormat to be kind, so what exactly does it mean to set boundaries? It's more than just saying no when you don't want to do something. Setting boundaries is about creating space for yourself, both mentally and emotionally, so that you can thrive in a world that constantly asks more from you. It's about recognizing that you don't have to justify your needs or explain why you're putting yourself first. Your time, your energy, and your mental health are precious. When you set boundaries, you protect those things. Because let's face it, no one else is going to do it for you. People might not always understand your need to set limits, but that doesn't make it any less valid. Your boundaries are the foundation for your self-respect. And without that respect, the quality of your relationships, both personal and professional, suffers. It's easy to get caught in the trap of people-pleasing. We want to be liked to fit in and to avoid conflict at all costs. But this mindset can lead us down a dangerous path where we prioritize the approval of others over our own well-being. If you've ever felt drained after spending time with someone, or like you're constantly bending over backward to accommodate others, it's time to stop and ask yourself, am I doing this because I want to, or because I'm afraid of confrontation? The truth is, it's not selfish to protect your energy. It's necessary. And let's not forget, if you're always putting others first, eventually you'll run out of energy to give. You can't pour from an empty cup, right? That's why it's crucial to refill your own cup first, to protect your time and energy for the people and things that truly matter. Have you ever had a conversation with someone who just couldn't stop talking about their problems, demands, and needs? And no matter how much you tried to help, they just kept taking and taking. It's exhausting, isn't it? This is a perfect example of how people can unconsciously take advantage of your kindness. And here's the kicker: the more you give, the more they'll expect. It's a cycle that only continues if you allow it to. It's not about being harsh or cruel. It's about asserting your right to space and time. By saying no or not now, you're teaching people that your time and energy are valuable and that you are not a bottomless well. You deserve to be heard, to have your own needs met, and to stand firm in the face of requests that overstep your boundaries. Kindness doesn't mean agreeing to everything. It means being compassionate while still protecting your peace. You might wonder, what if people think I'm rude or selfish for setting boundaries? This is a common fear, especially if you're used to being the one who always says yes or puts others before yourself. But here's a powerful truth. If someone gets upset because you're setting a boundary, that's their problem, not yours. The people who genuinely care about you will understand and respect your limits. If they don't, it's time to question the value of that relationship. People-pleasing only teaches others that you don't value yourself enough to set limits. But when you start enforcing boundaries, something amazing happens. You begin to attract people who respect your needs, who understand that your time and energy are just as important as theirs. It might be uncomfortable at first, but the more you practice setting boundaries, the more natural it becomes. What if I told you that your kindness can be manipulative if you're not careful? This may sound strange, but bear with me. Sometimes when we are overly accommodating, we use kindness as a way to avoid conflict, to gain approval, or even to manipulate situations to our favor. We might say yes to things we don't want to do because we're afraid of disappointing others or because we want to be seen as the good guy. But here's the catch. When we do this, we're not truly being kind. We're doing it out of fear, not love. The key is to act out of genuine care without expecting anything in return. When you set clear boundaries, you free yourself from the weight of hidden expectation. You become more authentic, more present, and more at peace with your choices. And that's what true kindness is all about, being genuine without ulterior motives. There's a common misconception that kindness means always giving in or allowing others to dictate your time. But here's the reality. The most kind and compassionate thing you can do for yourself and others is to take care of your own needs first. Think about it, when you're running on empty, you can't be the best friend, partner, or colleague. You can't offer anything of value to others when you're mentally or physically exhausted. Setting boundaries is a form of self-care, and self-care is a vital part of being kind. The more you care for yourself, the more you'll have to give. It's not selfish, it's essential. Without self-care, you become resentful, frustrated, and unable to offer kindness from a place of abundance. Take care of yourself so you can continue to offer the best of yourself to others. You might also feel the pressure to be nice in every situation, but there's a difference between being nice and being kind. Being nice is often about avoiding conflict, about trying to please everyone around you. But being kind comes from a place of authenticity and self-respect. Kindness doesn't mean tolerating disrespect or constantly accommodating others. Kindness means understanding that you deserve to be treated with dignity, just like everyone else. It means knowing that your worth is not defined by how much you do for others. It means saying no when you need to, walking away when necessary, and standing firm in your convictions. True kindness is rooted in confidence and self-awareness. It's not about pleasing others at your own expense. If you're struggling with the idea of setting boundaries, think of it this way. When you establish healthy boundaries, you are teaching others how to treat you. You are teaching them that your time, your emotions, and your space are valuable. The people in your life will either respect your boundaries or walk away, and that's okay. In fact, that's the kindest thing you can do for yourself. If someone doesn't respect your needs, that's their choice, but it shouldn't be your responsibility to bend over backwards to make them comfortable. Remember, kindness doesn't mean saying yes to everything. It means having the courage to stand up for yourself and knowing that you are worthy of respect. It's important to realize that when you set boundaries, you aren't rejecting others. You're simply protecting your peace and well-being. And here's a truth that might surprise you. When you start protecting yourself, you actually become a better friend, partner, and colleague. You'll show up more authentically with more energy and more love to give. People will appreciate the real you, not the version of you that's constantly drained and overwhelmed by trying to please everyone. Boundaries allow you to show up as your best self, without the emotional exhaustion that comes from overextending yourself. So don't be afraid to set limits. Your peace is worth it, and those who truly care about you will respect it. Finally, let me remind you that being kind doesn't mean being a doormat. You don't have to choose between being compassionate and standing up for yourself. In fact, the two go hand in hand. When you set boundaries, you're not being rude or selfish. You're protecting your right to be treated with respect. You're making space for healthy, balanced relationships that benefit both you and others. So embrace the power of kindness with boundaries. You'll find that the more you stand firm in your own worth, the more fulfilling and meaningful your connections will become. It's time to stop being a doormat and start being the best, most authentic version of yourself. It's easy to look at the idea of kindness with boundaries and think it's a contradiction. After all, how can you be kind while protecting your space and needs? But here's the thing. Kindness isn't about being available 24/7 or constantly sacrificing your own happiness to make others feel comfortable. It's about creating a space where both your well-being and others' well-being are respected. It's not a selfish act to say no or to step back from a situation that drains you. In fact, it's the most compassionate thing you can do, not just for yourself but for the people around you too. When you take care of yourself, you're able to show up more fully in your relationships, whether personal or professional. You can't be a source of strength for others if you're running on empty. So remember, kindness with boundaries isn't just an act of self-care, it's an act of love toward others. Let's take a moment to really reflect on the concept of self-worth. How often do you allow others to cross your boundaries simply because you want to avoid conflict or disappointment? How often do you let others' needs overshadow your own? This is a slippery slope, and before you know it, you'll have forgotten what it feels like to put yourself first. This happens because we often measure our self-worth by how much we can give to others. But here's the truth. Your worth isn't defined by how much you do, or how many times you say yes to everyone. Your worth is inherent. You were born worthy of love, respect, and kindness, not because of what you can do for others, but because of who you are. Recognizing this will free you from the guilt that often accompanies setting boundaries. It's time to stop allowing your self-worth to be dictated by others' expectations. Think about the long-term impact of constantly saying yes when you really mean no. Over time, it can erode your confidence, leaving you feeling like you're not in control of your own life. Every time you put your needs aside for someone else, you send a subtle message to yourself, I am not important. Over time, this internalized belief can lead to burnout, resentment, and a lack of motivation. But here's the flip side. When you start saying no with respect and kindness, you affirm your own worth. You show yourself that your needs matter just as much as anyone else's. And when you do this, your confidence will soar. You'll begin to trust yourself, knowing that you are capable of making decisions that honor your well-being. Saying no is not a rejection of others, it's a statement of self-respect. Have you ever noticed how people's behavior can shift when you set clear boundaries? It's as if the dynamics of the relationship change. People start to realize that you have limits and that those limits must be respected, and let's be honest, some people might get upset. They might try to guilt trip you or manipulate you into saying yes. But here's the crucial point. These reactions aren't about you, they're about them. When people react negatively to your boundaries, it's not a reflection of your kindness. It's a reflection of their inability to accept healthy limits. If they truly value you, they will adjust their behavior to respect your boundaries. If they don't, it might be time to reevaluate the relationship. Remember, healthy boundaries are essential for healthy relationships, and no one, no matter how close they are, has the right to disrespect them. Some might argue that setting boundaries is a sign of weakness or selfishness. They might say, if you really cared, you'd always be there for me. But let's stop and think for a moment. If you're constantly sacrificing your own needs for someone else's, how can you be the best version of yourself? How can you truly be there for someone if you're emotionally exhausted or overwhelmed? The truth is, boundaries are an act of strength, not weakness. They show that you value yourself and that you know how to protect your emotional health. People might not always understand your need for boundaries, but the people who matter most will respect them. And in doing so, they will learn to appreciate the person you are even more, because you'll show up as a whole, energetic and confident individual. But let's face it, setting boundaries isn't always easy. The fear of disappointing others, of facing conflict, or of being labeled as selfish can be overwhelming. But here's a secret. People who truly love and care for you want the best for you. They want to see you happy, healthy, and thriving. And when you set boundaries, you're not pushing them away. You're creating space for a healthier, more authentic relationship. Sometimes this means saying no to things that might make you uncomfortable in the short term. But remember, saying no doesn't mean you don't care. It simply means that you value yourself enough to prioritize your well-being. You cannot give from an empty cup, and when you recognize that, you'll be better equipped to support those around you with genuine love and compassion. Another aspect of kindness with boundaries is knowing when to walk away. Sometimes, even when we set clear boundaries, certain situations or people still don't respect them. In these cases, walking away might be the kindest thing you can do, not just for yourself, but for the other person as well. It may seem harsh at first, but in reality, you're doing both of you a favor. You're teaching them that you won't tolerate disrespect, and you're preserving your own mental and emotional health. Walking away isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength, self-respect, and wisdom. It's understanding that some relationships are simply not worth the emotional toll they take. And by walking away, you create space for the relationships that truly matter, those based on mutual respect, love, and understanding. We also need to understand that kindness with boundaries doesn't just apply to relationships with others. It applies to how we treat ourselves. How often do we push ourselves too hard, take on too much, or neglect our own needs in favor of doing more? Setting boundaries with yourself means knowing when to rest, when to take breaks, and when to say enough is enough. It's about giving yourself permission to pause, to recharge, and to prioritize your own well-being. In a world that values productivity over rest, it can be difficult to recognize the importance of this, but it's essential. Self-compassion and self-respect start with treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a friend. Remember, you don't need to be constantly on to be worthy of love and respect. One of the most freeing aspects of setting boundaries is that it allows you to stop worrying about what others think of you. We are often paralyzed by the fear of disappointing others. But once we start enforcing our boundaries, we realize that we can't please everyone, and that's okay. Not everyone is going to understand or respect your boundaries, and that's their issue, not yours. You're not responsible for managing other people's feelings or expectations. The only thing you can control is how you treat yourself and how you communicate your needs. When you stop living for others' approval, you give yourself the freedom to truly live authentically. It's a journey, and sometimes it will be uncomfortable, but in the end, you'll be grateful for the peace and clarity that boundaries bring into your life. Finally, I want to remind you that kindness isn't a one-way street. It's not just about how much you give to others, it's about how much you give to yourself. When you practice kindness with boundaries, you create a healthier, more fulfilling life. You become someone who values themselves and teaches others to do the same. So the next time someone asks you for something you're not willing or able to give, remember, it's okay to say no. It's okay to prioritize yourself. And when you do this, you're not being selfish. You're being kind to both yourself and others. You're showing that you deserve love, respect, and kindness just as much as anyone else. The fear of conflict can often prevent us from setting boundaries in the first place. We worry that if we assert ourselves, the people around us will become upset or angry. But what we often forget is that conflict doesn't always mean disaster. In fact, conflict can be a gateway to stronger, more authentic relationships. When you set boundaries and communicate them clearly, it allows the other person to understand where you stand. They may not always agree, but at least they will know where you draw the line. And isn't that much better than silently resenting them for overstepping your limits? Conflict is uncomfortable, yes, but it's also an opportunity for growth, both for you and for the relationship. So don't shy away from it. By leaning into difficult conversations, you create a space for deeper understanding and respect. Now let's talk about guilt. Oh, the guilt that often comes with saying no or standing firm in your boundaries. It can feel like a heavy weight on your shoulders, especially if you've been a people pleaser in the past. You might think, if I don't give in, they'll be disappointed in me. But here's the reality. Guilt is a natural emotion, but it doesn't have to control your actions. You have every right to prioritize your needs and take care of yourself without feeling guilty. The guilt often comes from old patterns of putting others first, but those patterns are not your truth. By allowing yourself to set boundaries, you break free from the cycle of guilt and teach yourself that your peace and well-being are worth protecting. Over time, you'll realize that the guilt doesn't last. It fades away as you become more confident in your decisions. One thing that often holds people back from setting boundaries is the fear of being misunderstood. You might worry that others will think you're rude or that you'll be seen as someone who's too difficult. But here's a powerful truth. Setting boundaries doesn't make you difficult, it makes you responsible. Responsible for your mental and emotional health, for your time, and for your relationships. People who care about you will respect your boundaries, and the people who don't, well, they might try to manipulate you, but their reactions say more about them than about you. It's crucial to remember that you are not responsible for how others react to your boundaries. You can't control their feelings, but you can control your own actions. And when you set boundaries, you're taking control of your life. And that's a powerful thing. You know what I've noticed. When we start to enforce boundaries, the people around us often begin to question their own behavior. Some will learn to respect our limits, while others will get upset because they're used to us saying yes all the time. But this is where we need to remind ourselves, we are not here to be at the mercy of others' needs. We are here to be our true selves. If people get upset, that's a reflection of their inability to handle your assertiveness, not a reflection of your kindness. The truth is, when you show up authentically and prioritize your own needs, you will attract the right people. The people who will appreciate and respect you for who you are, not just what you can do for them. So while it may be uncomfortable at first, enforcing boundaries will ultimately help you build stronger, healthier relationships. Sometimes when we talk about boundaries, people think we mean cutting others off or being cold and distant, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Setting boundaries doesn't mean being harsh or unkind. It means being clear, assertive, and respectful of both yourself and the other person. It's about creating healthy space in relationships where both parties can thrive. Boundaries are not walls. They're simply markers that define where you end and someone else begins. By setting those markers, you're able to engage in more meaningful, balanced relationships. It's not about pushing people away. It's about protecting your peace so that you can show up as your best self in every interaction. And when you do that, the relationships that matter will flourish. Another common misconception is that setting boundaries will isolate you from others. People often worry that if they start saying no or asserting their needs, they'll end up alone. But in reality, setting boundaries helps to attract the right people into your life. When you set limits, you send a message to others that you value yourself and your time. The people who respect those boundaries will stick around, and the ones who don't, well, they'll reveal themselves as not worth your time and energy. In the long run, setting boundaries leads to more authentic connections, because you're no longer trying to please everyone or hide parts of yourself. You're being true to who you are, and that's what attracts people who truly resonate with you. You might also encounter some resistance when you start setting boundaries, especially if those around you are used to you being available at all times. People may push back and try to convince you to abandon your boundaries. They might say things like, "You used to always do this for me," or "Why can't you just help this time?" This is where the power of being firm comes into play. Remember, you have the right to say no without offering an explanation or justification. It's not your responsibility to manage others' emotions or make them feel comfortable. Your responsibility is to yourself, and while it can be uncomfortable to stand firm in your decisions, doing so sends a message that you value your own time and well-being. Over time, the people who truly care for you will come to understand and respect your boundaries. It's just a matter of consistency. Another important aspect of setting boundaries is learning to be assertive. Being assertive doesn't mean being aggressive. It means being confident and clear in expressing your needs. You don't need to apologize for setting boundaries, and you don't need to feel guilty about asserting yourself. Assertiveness is a skill, and like any skill, it takes practice. The more you practice, the easier it becomes to communicate your needs with confidence and without fear of judgment. Assertiveness allows you to show up in the world as a person who values their time, energy, and emotion. It allows you to engage in relationships that are grounded in mutual respect and understanding. And that's what we all deserve, right? Sometimes people think that being kind means sacrificing your own needs to accommodate others. But true kindness isn't about constantly saying yes. It's about being honest with yourself and with others. It's about knowing when to offer your help and when to step back and take care of yourself. When you say no, it doesn't mean you're being unkind. It means you're being responsible for your own well-being. And that in itself is an act of kindness. You cannot give your best to others if you don't take care of yourself first. So instead of viewing boundaries as something negative, see them as a way to show up for others in a more meaningful way. When you respect your own limits, you're better equipped to give from a place of abundance, not depletion. Lastly, I want to emphasize that kindness with boundaries isn't a one-time decision. It's an ongoing practice. There will be times when you'll slip up and say yes when you should have said no. There will be moments of doubt and guilt, but that's okay. The important thing is to keep practicing, keep reinforcing your boundaries, and keep choosing to prioritize your own well-being. The more you do this, the easier it will become. And the more you set clear, healthy boundaries, the more you will attract relationships that are based on respect, love, and mutual understanding. Boundaries aren't just about saying no. They're about creating a life where your needs are honored and your peace is protected. The truth is, every time you set a boundary, you are teaching others how to treat you. The people around you are always observing how you interact with the world, and when you make your needs known, it sets a clear standard. Those who truly care for you will appreciate that clarity, as it removes any ambiguity from the relationship. They will know where they stand and what to expect from you. But those who don't respect your boundaries, they'll show their true colors, and you'll realize that these are the people who weren't serving your best interest. Setting boundaries isn't just about protecting your space. It's about making sure you are surrounded by people who lift you up, not drain you. You don't need to constantly prove your worth or say yes to every request to be loved. Your worth is inherent, and those who truly value you will recognize and respect that. At times it might feel easier to give in, especially when you fear confrontation. The truth is, avoiding confrontation doesn't keep you safe, it only delays the inevitable. When you keep saying yes to things you don't want to do, resentment starts to build up. That resentment doesn't disappear. It festers inside you, slowly eating away at your peace of mind. And while you might avoid conflict in the short term, the longer you allow this to continue, the more difficult it becomes to establish those boundaries. The more you say yes to things you don't want, the harder it gets to say no when it truly matters. But when you finally draw that line, when you say no with confidence, it's like a weight has been lifted. You reclaim your peace. You reclaim your time, and in doing so, you protect the relationships that matter most to you. Setting boundaries also allows you to create space for your own growth. When you're constantly preoccupied with meeting everyone else's needs, your own goals and dreams often take a back seat. But when you start to prioritize your own well-being, you make room for your own aspirations. Imagine if every yes you said was a commitment to your own future. When you say no to things that drain you, you free up your energy and time to focus on the things that matter most to you. Whether it's pursuing a personal passion, working on a project, or simply taking time to recharge, setting boundaries creates space for these things to flourish. Your life isn't just about taking care of others, it's about growing and thriving as your own person too. It's easy to get caught up in the fear that if you set boundaries, you'll disappoint others. But let's flip that perspective. When you give people what they want at the expense of your own happiness, you're actually doing them a disservice. They don't get the best version of you, they get a tired, resentful, and stretched-thin version. When you establish boundaries, you're teaching people how to interact with you in a way that honors both your needs and theirs. You're creating relationships that are built on mutual respect and care, not manipulation or guilt. And by doing so, you model for others that it's okay to take care of yourself. You show them that your time, energy, and emotions are valuable, and you invite them to do the same for themselves. Now let's talk about the magic that happens when you start honoring your boundaries. You'll notice that your energy shifts. You'll stop feeling drained, irritated, and overextended all the time. Instead, you'll feel more present in your relationships, more excited about the things you truly care about, and more connected to your sense of self. Setting boundaries is like a breath of fresh air. It allows you to breathe again. And when you start breathing in a way that is aligned with your needs, your energy will flow in a way that benefits everyone around you. You'll stop feeling like a doormat and start feeling like the empowered person you were always meant to be. One of the most important aspects of kindness with boundaries is learning to trust your intuition. Deep down, you already know when something isn't right or when your boundaries are being crossed. But so often we ignore that inner voice because we're afraid of being seen as difficult or too much, but your intuition is a powerful tool. It's your internal compass guiding you to make decisions that honor your values and your well-being. If something doesn't feel right, trust that feeling. It's not about being overly sensitive or dramatic. It's about listening to your body and your mind when they tell you that a situation isn't serving you. When you start trusting your intuition, you'll find that your ability to set boundaries becomes second nature. You'll know when to say no without hesitation, and you'll feel more confident in your ability to navigate difficult situations. Here's the kicker. People who respect your boundaries will actually love you more for it. It might seem counterintuitive, but the truth is that clear boundaries create deeper connections. When you're constantly saying yes to everything, you leave people wondering where they stand with you. They may even begin to take you for granted because they know you'll always be there to help. But when you say no or set a limit, it shows them that you are a person who values themselves, and that makes you more attractive. Not in a physical sense, but in terms of your emotional strength. The more you show up for yourself, the more others will begin to show up for you. Boundaries are an invitation to build a more balanced and fulfilling relationship dynamic where both parties thrive. If there's one thing I want you to remember, it's this. Kindness doesn't mean being a pushover, it means being willing to show up for others, but also for yourself. You don't have to be available to everyone at all times, and you don't have to give up your peace to make others happy. Setting boundaries isn't about shutting people out. It's about showing them that you deserve respect, love, and understanding just like they do. And by doing so, you create an environment where everyone's needs are acknowledged and respected. It's a win-win situation. When you start setting healthy boundaries, you'll realize that kindness isn't just about what you give. It's about knowing when to hold space for yourself. Boundaries are also vital when it comes to self-preservation. In a world that constantly demands more from us, more time, more energy, more attention, it can feel overwhelming to keep up, but the truth is, if you don't set limits, you'll burn out. Boundaries are a form of self-preservation that ensures you stay grounded and don't lose sight of your needs. By saying no when necessary, you preserve your emotional and mental health, allowing you to show up in the world with clarity and focus. It's not just about protecting your time, it's about protecting your mind and soul from the constant pressure of external demands. And when you do this, you become more effective, more present, and more able to handle whatever life throws your way. Lastly, I want to remind you that setting boundaries isn't a one-time event. It's a continual process. The more you practice it, the easier it becomes. And the more you honor your boundaries, the more you'll begin to recognize that your needs matter. So don't be afraid to say no. Don't be afraid to draw a line in the sand. Your boundaries are not just a reflection of who you are. They are a declaration of your worth. You are worthy of love, respect, and peace. And when you set boundaries, you make space for all of that to thrive in your life. By now, I hope you've come to understand that boundaries are not a barrier to kindness. They are the foundation upon which genuine kindness is. When you set boundaries, you are demonstrating a deep respect for yourself and for others. You're saying, "I matter," and by doing so, you encourage others to acknowledge their own worth as well. It's a powerful ripple effect. Imagine what a world would look like if everyone respected their own needs, and by extension, respected the needs of others. This is the world we can create by practicing kindness with boundaries. Not a world of people-pleasing or self-sacrifice, but one of mutual respect and understanding. It's also important to remember that boundaries can evolve over time. As you grow and change, so too will your limits. Something that once felt acceptable might no longer serve you, and that's okay. This isn't about rigid, inflexible rules. It's about understanding where you are in the moment and adjusting accordingly. Boundaries are fluid. They adapt to your circumstances, needs, and goals. And the more you practice setting boundaries, the more adept you become at recognizing when they need to shift. Trust yourself to honor those changes. Your evolving boundaries reflect your growth, and embracing that change only strengthens your sense of self. One of the most challenging aspects of setting boundaries is that it can stir up the fear of losing people, whether friends, family, or colleagues. We worry that if we stand up for ourselves, we will push others away. But let's flip that on its head. When you establish boundaries, you aren't pushing people away. You're simply teaching them how to interact with you in a healthy, respectful way. The people who love you will understand, even if it's uncomfortable at first. And those who can't respect your boundaries, they might leave, and that's not a loss. It's a blessing in disguise. People who can't respect your boundaries were never meant to be a part of your journey. And as hard as it may be, letting go of relationships that drain you makes space for the relationships that are truly fulfilling. Boundaries also foster a greater sense of self-awareness. They require us to check in with ourselves regularly and ask, what do I truly need right now? This practice can be incredibly grounding and allows us to become more in tune with our emotions, our goals, and our well-being. When we're constantly saying yes to others, we lose sight of what we want or need. But when we take the time to reflect on our boundaries, we become more mindful of our own desires. We start to recognize when something doesn't align with our values, and we make choices that reflect our true selves. Boundaries are an opportunity to reconnect with who we are and what we want from life. The notion of being kind but not a doormat isn't about being selfish, it's about being self-aware. It's about recognizing that you have a voice and a right to make decisions that honor your emotional and mental health. You don't need to explain yourself or justify your boundaries to anyone. Your needs are valid and your feelings matter. You have every right to say no without feeling guilty or pressured. And in doing so, you are modeling for others that they too can take care of themselves without fear of judgment. Boundaries are empowering because they give you permission to live life on your own terms, free from the expectations and manipulations of others. As you begin to implement boundaries in your life, you may notice an increase in your confidence and self-esteem. There's something incredibly empowering about standing up for yourself and asserting your needs. Every time you say no with confidence, you reinforce your sense of self-worth. And with that, you begin to notice that you are no longer seeking external validation. Instead, you find validation within yourself. You start to trust your instincts, your decisions, and your ability to navigate the world with confidence. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, but every small step you take in honoring your boundaries brings you closer to becoming the best version of yourself. It's also important to realize that boundaries aren't just for others, they are a tool for self-care. Many of us are conditioned to believe that taking care of ourselves is selfish or indulgent. But the truth is, if you don't take care of yourself, you won't be able to show up for anyone else. When you prioritize your well-being by setting boundaries, you are ensuring that you have the energy and resources to be there for others in a healthy, sustainable way. Self-care isn't just about bubble baths and pampering. It's about protecting your mental, emotional, and physical health. Boundaries are an essential part of this process because they ensure you don't burn out or become resentful by overextending yourself. Another powerful shift that comes with setting boundaries is that it forces you to take responsibility for your own life. Too often we let others dictate how we spend our time and energy. We allow ourselves to be dragged in all directions by people's demands, and we forget that we have a say in the matter. Boundaries remind us that we are in charge of our own lives. They empower us to make choices that are in alignment with our values and priorities. We no longer have to feel like victims of other people's expectations. By asserting our needs, we take back control of our lives and become active participants in creating the life we want. It's also worth noting that boundaries don't just apply to external relationships. They also apply to the way we treat ourselves. We often forget that the way we talk to ourselves, the expectations we place on ourselves, and the way we treat our own needs are also a form of boundary setting. Do you allow yourself time to rest? Do you forgive yourself when you make mistakes? Or do you berate yourself for not being perfect? The boundaries you set with yourself are just as important as the boundaries you set with others. If you aren't kind and compassionate toward yourself, it's nearly impossible to expect others to be. Start with self-compassion and the rest will follow. Finally, I want to leave you with this thought. Boundaries are not a luxury, they are a necessity. They are the foundation of self-respect, self-love, and healthy relationships. Without boundaries, we can easily lose ourselves in the demands of others and become resentful, burned out, and disconnected from our true selves. But when we embrace the power of setting boundaries, we unlock a life of freedom, peace, and authenticity. So be kind, but don't be a doormat. You deserve to take up space, to have your needs respected, and to live a life that is true to who you are. The world needs you to show up as your best self. And that starts with protecting your own peace through the boundaries you set.